Good evening, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here this evening, and I'm going to talk to you about three major things. The first is my fascination with ions and words ending in ION. The second is about my life's journey, and the third will be to share with you a few mantras. But let me dive straight into the ions. The ions are very, very powerful words because they carry a linguistic charge. All my life, I've been fascinated with words. Some people would say obsessed, but that obsession has led me to some interesting discoveries. There's two types of ion, right? So there's positive ions and negative ions. And if you look at the three words behind me, inspiration, imagination, and innovation, they are some of the pillars of my life which have guided me to where I am today. I'm now going to show you some principles behind the ions. So one of the principles is to learn as much as you can of the ions, learn as many ions as possible, master them in communication, and observe them. See how other people react to those ions. Ions carry, as I said, a linguistic charge. And that charge is what elevates the communication when we use positive ions. Conversely, when we use negative ions, we can lower the tone of the conversation. But using them in a positive light is what really helps to enhance that conversation. I'd now like to show you some positive ions. There's about 30 of them there on the slide. But if I was to focus even on one or two, like motivation and ion itself, think of the power of those words, their ability to just get to the point. And when you look at ions in parallel or when they're together, look at the symmetry between them, like those first three words I showed you, inspiration, imagination, and innovation. Also, some other positive ions, we have motivation, we have vision and reflection. These are very, very powerful words that appear on a very regular basis and words that just bring us to a point. They help to fire up the imagination. If I was to move on, actually before I move on, I just want to tell you about a stream of some beautiful positive ions. Inspiration, motivation, action, passion, education, communication. I could go on all night about these beautiful words, but they are truly resonant. And I'm going to focus very, very briefly on the negative ions. Can you imagine in a feedback session if you said to somebody, you're prone to procrastination, hesitation, and delusions? Can you imagine the impact that that would have on that person? They'd be gutted. So negative ions can lower that tone and can be, as the word says, they can be very, very negative. Also think of words like explosion and destruction in the context of having what's happening in global wars at the moment. And when you hear those words, what do you think? So that's a little bit about the ions. How do the ions bridge into my journey? Again, I'll go back to those three pillar words of inspiration, imagination, and innovation. My life's journey has taken place in three main phases. The first I call my University of Life years, which lasted 20 years. The second is my growth, transformation, and discovery years, which lasted 35 years. And most recently, and most important of all, is my Imagineering years, the last 4 years in County Kerry. So if I take you quickly through the journey, I was born in Sligo and left there when I was a year old. And then I moved for 14 years to the beautiful Listowel in North County Kerry. Listowel is home of the artists, the home of literature, the home of writers, the home of playwrights, the home of poets, the home of artists. It was a fantastic place to grow up in. We had role models, the likes of Brian McMahon, John B. Keane, Brendan Kennelly, and the culture and the whole spirit of the arts in Listowel is very uplifting. As a young boy, I experienced that by going to plays of John B. Keane at a very, very young age and being exposed to adult themes, I might add. Also, my journey in Listowel as a young boy was dominated by fishing. I had a fishing rod, and I used to get into the river as often as possible, sometimes every day, but as often as my parents would let me out. And with the rod and the reel and the feel of the line and the electricity with the current of the water, I felt absolutely brilliant. And it was there that I learnt another ion, visualization. I visualized myself on the other bank of the river. And on the other bank of the river, what did I do? I looked back at myself, and I felt at one with the river. And surprise, surprise, my dream that I had the night before, the wow, actually happened. I caught a trout. So that visualization was really, really important. On the next part of my University of Life years, I moved to Naas in County Kildare. And there I completed my formal education by going to university in Dublin. And at the end of those years, I took up a position in corporate banking, which was really the start of my professional career. And as I said, that lasted in banking for 25 years. And that was a wonderful career, a great progression throughout, lots of highs. My role was to help to accelerate businesses by providing debt facilities to allow them to have organic growth, capital expenditure, and acquisitions. I'm going to jump forward now to the year 20 years on to 2007. There was 3 key events that took place in that year. One was a visit to Haiti on a business mission. And on that business mission, I was exposed for the first time to what I would call deep poverty. And with that poverty came compassion. My heart, my soul, my mind was split open by what I observed. And I learnt the true meaning of the word compassion by absorbing some of the pain of others. And I also learnt about having respect for other people. What happened was very, very strange. On the plane on the way home from Haiti, I wrote my first ever poem called I Have a Vision. And I had been on an island called Île Vache, where there was 15,000 people. But that poem was the spark that ignited my poetic journey, which has lasted to this day, 20 years later. Another story happened actually in 1999. Whilst in banking, I was over on business in London, and I was in a beautiful restaurant called Le Pont de la Tour. And in that restaurant, which was a Michelin-starred restaurant, I suffered a massive anaphylactic shock episode with shellfish. I collapsed on the ground, my face swelled up, my tongue got tied, I stopped breathing, I started choking. I was on the ground unconscious for 10 minutes. Whilst in that state, the sensation I had was of my feet tipping up and going through the tunnel of white light at the greatest speed imaginable. At the end of that acceleration and that journey, I heard a voice, and the voice was neither male nor female. But with the voice, I heard 2 words, he's dying. And with that, I had the sensation of slowly coming back down into my body. When I awoke, the medics were working furiously on me to save my life, administering adrenaline and trying to stabilize me. Eventually, when I was stabilized, I was brought to hospital, kept in overnight, and recovered fully the next day. But I suppose the life lesson that I took out of that episode was to learn to, in effect, smell the roses, enjoy life, slow down, and take every day as a precious moment. Fast forwarding now back to 2007, the other key event was the beginnings of the global financial crisis. And with that, it kind of accelerated into 2008. And we had a long period of disturbance in the markets and for everybody's lives because of what happened. For me, it was a time, again, to slow down, to understand the dynamics of what was taking place. And what I learned was that it's important to navigate your way through a crisis. And I was faced with redundancy in 2010, which was very difficult to take after 25 years. However, for me, that redundancy was a rebirth. It was an opportunity to reset, reassess my life, and move forward in a new direction. The new direction lasted for 12 years because I took on 6 different business development roles, not all of which worked out, but there was some great successes. So that journey now brings me up to 4 years ago. And during COVID, myself and my partner, we were deciding where are we going with our lives. And again, we decided you've got to slow down and reassess in order to accelerate again. And I suggested that we relocate to Kerry, and that was a decision that we both made very quickly. So we moved to Killarney, and again, Killarney for us has been a revelation. It's been a complete reset. It has allowed us to come up with a whole new way of life by embracing nature and discovering that you do actually accelerate when you slow down. And it has also allowed me to pursue my creative dreams and visions by publishing another book, by immersing in the arts, and also by immersing in volunteering. I'd now like to just discuss briefly a few mantras. I mentioned these at the beginning, but these are really just some takeaways which have particular meaning to me. I've come up with each of these mantras myself. The first is visualization. So visualize tomorrow's successes tonight, and they will happen if I act in the now. And using the power of visualization, think of the young boy in the river and what he did in order to catch that first trout. By visualizing, we can create a picture of what success is going to look like in the next 24-hour period. What's the wow that's going to happen you tomorrow? Dream it. Paint in the virtual brushstrokes of success and what that's going to look like, and you stand a much better chance of achieving it. The next mantra is to play daily on the field of your passions. Note that these are still on the ions, visualization and passion, so how important those words are. But by playing daily on the field of your passions, you can parallel those passions with your professional life and achieve the goals that you set for yourself and feel happier as a result. And the third mantra is focus. I looked into the component letters of focus and said, what does this word actually mean? How do we best describe it? So F is for from, O outstanding, C clarity, U succeed. And again, if we apply that level of focus in our daily life, in fact, all 3 of those mantras will help you succeed. So moving on, in conclusion, another beautiful ion. My life's lesson from all of this is to always back yourself. Know what gives you inspiration. Know what drives your imagination. Know what makes you innovate. Really, really important. And use positively charged ions wherever possible. Thank you.